My name is Enrique Ramírez. I'm a software engineer at Tesco, and today I wanted to talk about the terminal and how you could use it as a companion thing to do your daily Android development. So in the next 20 minutes, I want to cover some tips and tricks that could help you. So first of all, what is a terminal, right? So during the second and third generation of computers, like the norm was having punch cards, like operators will put the programs in those punch cards and feed them into the computers. But then later that was slowly being replaced, with the terminals, initially just basic keyboards with printers, and then they fully replaced them until that evolved into what we have today, that is the Unix shell. So in a nutshell, a terminal is just an interface that lets us communicate with a system by typing commands, right? How does it work? Like a very simplified version of how it works. So now that we are on an Android conference, I wanted to make this this analogy. So we have different streams. We have the standard input stream, standard output stream, and the standard error stream. And think about the standard input stream as a text watcher or some kind of observable or live data, something along those lines. Every time you type in your keyboard, that's going to be read there, and then you write your commands and you execute them. And there's a processing in your system that will output the results on the standard output stream. Or if there's an error or there's a problem, it will output that on the standard error stream. So, and going to the Unix shell, so historically there has been different versions of the Unix shell. Those were on the first versions of Unix, so on the first version of Linux, developed some of them by the Bell Labs, and then later, and what we have today and what you normally are going to work with is going to be Bash, but I think it's important not to forget about those ones because these were based on those original ones. So you will have either Bash or C shell. C shell is compatible with Bash, and they are both based on Bourne shell. So, building your toolbox. So every time you get into a new thing, and you get into woodworking or any hobby of yours that you start, the first thing that you need to do is build like a toolbox, right? Like a very basic set of tools that allow you to start developing those skills that the hobby has until you get better with it, and you need more complex or more advanced tools, and you incrementally start doing that. So I recommend doing exactly the same thing with the Android terminal. So what is the things that we want to go in our toolbox? So first thing I will say the basic commands, like most of you know most of these commands, but in grouping them by function, we have the ones that allows you to navigate through your terminal, through your file system, some commands for file manipulation, MV, CP, file inspection, that we have cat, head, tail, that kind of thing. You have also commands for changing permissions, some others for pagination, very useful when you have a command that has a very verbose output. You might want to have something like more or less. Then if you get into scripting, then you might get into grep. Grep is I love grep. It does some filtering, and you can pass many arguments to it. And then if you get into more advanced, let's say, scripting, set is probably your friend there. Then you have others like echo, export, source. And then you don't have to forget about the operators either. So you need an operator for execute. Then you have some operators for file input-output redirection. Then very useful ones will be the command concatenation ones that will help you build your scripts or build aliases that we're going to talk about later. And then it's important to know how to reference the home directory or how to to read variables in your terminal with the dollar symbol. And the other things that in your normal daily Android development you will play with normally with ADB, or maybe also the SDK manager, Gradle, everyone, right? Git. If you are into CI/CD, you might do a little bit of Bash or even Python scripts. You can see depending on which CI you're using, and you might use some linting tools from the command line, and then there's other tools like screen copy, like just to if you don't know screen copy, it allows you to mirror a device or an emulator in another window over ADB. So yeah, once you are done with, once you have a small toolbox with the basics, you could start playing with it. So here, for instance, I just check out now on Android, which is like a reference project everyone look at. And I was looking into what is the unit test task on this project. So first thing I did was, okay, I could do Gradle task and as a paginator like Less. You could search, Less has some options for searching, but I could also use the pipe and grep. I could filter and just get the unit tasks. So yeah, that's just playing a little bit with it. So the other thing I want to talk about is setting up your terminal. There's a lot of things that you could do, a lot of things that you can customize, but I will talk a bit about the very basic things that you need to do. Well, first of all, if you use Android Studio, you could check the settings of the terminal. You can know if you enter into the settings, you can have add environmental variables, or you could, even if you want to change between CSH and Bash, you could do. You have other options, but yeah, it doesn't have the basic things that you can do there. But most importantly, the thing I wanted to talk is configuring how the terminal starts. So depending on whether you are using a Bash or C shell, you are going to have different configuration files. And there's Bash RC for Bash, as well as Bash profile. And for CSH, you have CSH RC or C profile, I believe. And it's something I recommend here is, rather than adding all your configuration, rather than adding all your aliases into the Bash profile, because you might be using third-party libraries that fill all those configuration files with more stuff. What I recommend is splitting your custom configuration on the one that you have done yourself, and have it in separate files. So I will do that. I will have a config, or you can call it config, or however you want, and another for aliases. And I will import them in the main file. And also, if I change system, I will just grab those and move to another system. And especially I'm going to talk now about aliases, but especially for aliases, it's important to have them in a separate file, because when you want to reload them, if you reload the whole configuration, you might end up in a very weird state of the terminal. Like if you have prompt scripts or something like that, you could end up with like a double prompt or something like that. So I like splitting those ones, and if I add aliases, having them in a separate file so I can load them again. So yes, in this Bash profile or CSHRC, I just import them. For that, I use the source command. And I have in the home directory, I have those files, and basically I do for the config file, I have very basic stuff, which is the version of Java that I'm using. Normally in here Java 11, and also I export the Android command line tools to the path, like to be able to do ADB or SDK manager, and just appending it to the path environment variable. And then later there, I will load some other script. The simple one I normally run, but you can run many others, is git completion. I think it's a cool one that allows you to see which branch you are in when you are in the terminal. But you can load loads and loads. So aliases, I think aliases are something I recommend everyone to get into if you don't know them already. So when you, let's say you start a new company, or you face a big project for the first time, you sometimes have the problems that to run it from the terminal. I mean, of course, you can run it from the IDE, but if you don't want to wait for the whole Android Studio to load and sync and index, you might want to do it from the terminal. But you have the problem that you need to write these massive commands, and you might have to pass Gradle arguments. You need to remember which was the exact assemble task that you need to do. If you need to pass the environment, if it's not passed through the Gradle task, or if maybe you have to pass a service key or an API key for the debug build or something, you need to do those massive things. So you need to at least do building, installing, and running, and that could be like remembering all of that, or going back into your history to do that. It seems a bit too much. Why not having something like this, a small command that builds that, and you could even have different variants of it, right? So those are alias. Those alias are there for that. I mean, for more things, but those alias could help us with that. So to add an alias, you go to the config file that we were talking before, or if you want directly to your bash profile, that's all right. That's fine as well. You do alias, the name of your alias, and the big massive command in between quotes, and basically you need to load it again with source, and now you have a tiny command that can replace the whole thing. You don't even need to go there into your config file. You could just use the echo command, write the name of the alias, and then use this file input-output operator to append it to your config file, like I call it shell config file, but whichever your config file is, and source it again, as I mentioned. And what is the first alias I add? I saw this tweet from Nicola, and I think that's the thing that everyone, if you have a takeaway, if you get a takeaway from this talk, it's like, please do that. And if you use the terminal, it's GW, because life is too short to do that / Gradle, right? So yeah, I really love that, and I wanted to share. And I do it every time I configure a new machine. But coming back to the first example, so let's say we are in a big project. We have different variants of our app. We want to be able to quickly go and build it. And the thing is, we split that into build, install, and run. So you could do the alias in separate them, like having the one assemble for the staging version, one assemble for the prod version, then installing the debug and running the debug. Even if you want, you could use this for deep links, right, as well. And then you could concat all the commands together. But you have with this way, I mean, it seems like a lot, but this way you can run them separately. Like imagine you have an emulator, you close it. You don't need to go and run the whole. If you're having a single command, by splitting, you could say, okay, I connect another device and just do install and run. And yeah, so you could do all those sort of things. Other things that are very useful for is your running your tests, running your static analysis. You could have one for the module you normally work with, and you can have another one for running the whole test for the whole test suite. And same with static analysis. Other things that I use aliases for is for Git. Git, I use it a lot rather than having to check out my develop branch and pull everything. I just do that, just develop. And it fetches, pulls, and gets everything, or main if you use main rather than develop. And pushing the branch, I use this command that basically gets the name of the current branch and pass it as an argument with the pipe operator into git push with xargs, which appends it at the end. One thing about that, I think, is Git does that for you now if you configure it, but I've been doing that for ages, and I wanted to share as well. And also, if you want to update your current branch, there's a merge dev. It fetches everything and merge into your branch. So, because I don't have a lot of time to talk about scripting, but I wanted at least to mention scripting a little bit. So once you are happy with you're happy, you swim a little bit, right, in the pool with your new tools. You can maybe try to get into scripting, and scripting is a very cool thing. It allows you to automate lots of things. It could help you with migrations. It could help you with if you get into CI/CD and DevOps in general. I think scripting is a cool thing. And for instance, I came up here with a super basic script, but just to see the structure of a script, because we don't have much time for this. But basically, I did this script that what basically does is search for. Imagine you are doing a migration from RX to coroutines. So I made a basic script that goes to any directory that you pass and just lists all the files that need to that contains RX Java. So you have a list of files to do, like check marks or whatever. So and the structure is that it has a head. It has some kind of verification. So when other people use your script, so they know if they use the right arguments, and you return an error if they weren't using it correctly. Some indication that what the script is doing at runtime when it is running, and then the basic, then the actual function of the script. This is very basic, and you could basically do an alias for that. But I thought it was a good example as an initial script, and still have time. Yeah, another things that I wanted to mention is all the tools that you can add, all the companion things that you can have. Like MyCSH is a super cool one, super cool tool that is in the top of your terminal that does some prompt customization, configuration. It gives you a lot of aliases. Git completion comes directly there. So I really recommend that one, but you don't need to if you're starting. Then for the macOS users, there's the Homebrew that gives you all those package managers that you don't have, but the Linux guys have, right? And Homebrew gives that for you. Then there's other things used in the community like fish shells, which I haven't used myself, but I think it's quite popular. And another one that I love is WSL, Windows App System for Linux. If you are the Windows user that you're stuck with the Windows machine, you can still have the Linux terminal, and you can basically have any distribution on the top of Windows without having to use any how is it called, a virtual machines or any of that. And still happy with a bit of time. And yeah, and that was the end of the talk. Thank you.